what we got here is what we got here. And that's an election tomorrow with former Republican Attorney General Brad Schimmel running against Dane County Judge Susan Crawford, and State Democratic Party Chair Ben Wikler joins us now to talk more about the importance of the election. Ben, good morning. How are you?
Pat, I'm good. I'm glad to be with you, and I'm fired up because this election, the whole world is watching, and Wisconsin voters have a chance to say that we don't want Brad Schimmel, bought by Elon Musk, to be on the state Supreme Court. Wisconsin's not for sale. This is a democracy, and the people are going to rule.
And just yesterday, when Elon Musk came to Wisconsin, Kristen Lyderly was just telling us the crowd outside rivaled the crowd inside, which again tells you something about the public level of interest. This was a campaign that started with, the Marquette poll didn't even take a head-to-head rating on the candidates because so few people knew about the candidates. And I said back then, well, that's going to change. And people have really come to learn about both these candidates. And there's no reason not to know which one you want or don't want to see on the court at this point.
That's exactly right. So Susan Crawford is the kind of dedicated public servant and impartial judge that really any defendant, anyone who cares about the rule of law would want on the court. She's someone who served as a prosecutor for years, then in state government in multiple different agencies. She oversaw enforcement of our environmental laws. Then when Scott Walker won, she went into private practice. She was the lawyer for Planned Parenthood in the case Planned Parenthood versus Brad Schimmel, which kind of sums it all up. Brad Schimmel said it was an honor to have his name in that case. I think it was an honor for Susan Crawford to fight for reproductive freedom in the state. She represented workers' rights, voters' rights, and then as a judge has been exemplary on the court. Brad Schimmel, at every stage of his career, he's drawn a firestorm of criticism for essentially corruption, for giving plea deals when he was a prosecutor to a child pornography defendant whose lawyer gave him a campaign contribution. As Attorney General, he was the only Wisconsin politician to take money from the opioid manufacturers, from Purdue Pharmaceutical, and then refused to join the lawsuit suing the opioid companies during that wave of death and destruction across our state. And now, as a candidate for Supreme Court, he's essentially sold out to the world's richest man, who wants to be able to bypass state law, sell his Teslas in Wisconsin, regardless of our car dealership laws, and seems to want to remove any check or balance on his and Trump's power. So this is a pattern of corruption about Brad Schimmel that for a lot of voters is deeply, deeply, deeply concerning.
For folks who have said, well, these spring elections, they're supposed to be nonpartisan. The state Supreme Court race is supposed to be nonpartisan. Brad Schimmel got into this, 18 months ago, something like that. And as somebody who's run multiple times as a Republican, it's not like anybody who actually watches this was fooled into thinking that Brad Schimmel was not going to be the clearly Republican candidate in this race.
Well, he dispelled any possible confusion about that when he posed in front of a 20-foot tall Trump statue, inflatable Trump balloon, I should say, as part of his campaign. He has said that Trump keeps losing in the courts, which, followers of the news knows because Trump keeps breaking the law. But he said that Trump keeps losing in the courts. This can only stop in the courts. He needs a support network. That's what Brad Schimmel's running to be. That's not the job of a judge. If you watch Brad Schimmel's ads, they're just about Trump's endorsement of him. He's trying to get people to vote who like Trump. But the thing is that a judge is actually part of the judicial branch. They're supposed to be a check on the power of the executive. They're supposed to be the people who say, look, if you paint outside the lines, if you break our laws and violate our Constitution, you'll be held to account. And that standard should apply to Republicans and Democrats and everybody. And Brad Schimmel seems to want to use a rubber stamp when it comes to whatever laws Trump and Musk might want to break. That is bad for democracy, whether or not you're a Democrat. And that, to me, is reason alone to support Susan Crawford in this race.
I think rubber stamp is really the term I want to hit on next year, because when you talk about, being impartial when it comes to somebody like Donald Trump, you have a conservative justice in Brian Hagedorn who refused to go along with Trump's desire to, overturn the will of the voters in 2020. He stood with the rule of law, which I know surprised some of, his voters. Similarly, a lot of people are waking up surprised that the entire Wisconsin Supreme Court, including the progressive judges, turned back Attorney General Josh Kaul's effort to stop Elon Musk's $1 million giveaway. Now, we'll talk about the merits of that in a moment, but my larger point being, there was clearly nothing rubber stamp about the progressive justices yesterday or last night, nothing rubber stamp about what Justice Hagedorn did back in November, December of 2020, and that's really something, that kind of impartiality is a good quality in a justice. It's a bad quality in a politician. It's a good quality in a justice.
That's exactly right. And, however I feel about any particular decision by the Supreme Court, what I want is a Supreme Court that is actually following the law and the Constitution. And what you get with Brad Schimmel instead of a gavel is a rubber stamp, or even worse, what he described. He said he went to Menards and bought a pair of knee pads so he could crawl around on his knees and beg, please, 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 for help from the biggest Republican donors in the country. And they've delivered. Elon Musk has put in more than $25 million. I want a gavel, not knee pads. I don't want knee pad Brad, allowing whatever to pass. So this really does go to the heart of what it is that the state Supreme Court is supposed to do. And the effect on each of us in our own lives is going to be substantial on questions like whether the many laws that passed after it are all thrown aside in order to put back in an 1849 abortion ban that Brad Schimmel has supported, whether we have a state Supreme Court that tries to overturn elections. You talked about Brian Hagedorn refusing to overturn Trump's loss in 2020. That was, I think, a real act of judicial courage. Brad Schimmel has said that the Supreme Court screwed over Donald Trump in 2020. He's been asked whether that case that affirmed that voters choose who wins the presidential election, whether that case was correctly decided. He's refused to answer. He is kind of winking broadly that he would put the Constitution and the will of the voters aside and refuse to allow elections to be decided if they don't go Trump's way. And this is not hypothetical. If you look at North Carolina, they had a state Supreme Court election statewide, and the conservative majority on their state Supreme Court has refused to accept the outcome of the election and seat their new colleague. That is about as bad as it gets. That could happen here. Brad Schimmel has completely disqualified himself, and the fact that he has such a big for sale sign that Elon Musk has flown in and started handing out $1 million checks tells you everything you need to know.
Let's go back in time here, 16 years, to a younger, thinner Pat Kreitlow, who was then in the state Senate and had that signature bill that got passed and signed into law called the Impartial Justice Bill. And it was designed specifically to clean up state Supreme Court elections. But of course, with a conservative-led state Supreme Court and a conservative-led legislature from 2011 onward, that law that then State Representative Gordon Hinson and I got passed was set aside. And what a difference we've come from an impartial justice law for state Supreme Court races to where the world's richest man flies into Green Bay and hands out two $1 million checks. And the fact that both a circuit court and an appeals court and then the state Supreme Court wouldn't take it up. Now, again, I'm not a lawyer, but when they say, well, in terms of standing and demonstrated harm and all that, the point I'm making is our current laws, statutes, they were not prepared for this level of unbridled corruption. And I think there's only one group of people that would actually want to fix this versus a group of people that say, this is great. More of the same, please.
Nothing has made it clearer the necessity of a law like yours, of public financing for judicial elections, of campaign finance reform, than the specter of the world's richest man openly, nakedly corrupting our judicial elections to elect a corrupt judge, someone who is selling out to the biggest donors in order to get power so that he can advance a political agenda. That should be out of bounds. And that is a system that Republicans have fought tooth and claw to keep in place. Republicans set the rules around recusal so that when someone floods millions of dollars into your campaign, you don't have to recuse if their case comes before you. And here we have Brad Schimmel saying that he won't commit to recusing if Elon Musk's own lawsuit that will benefit Elon Musk financially comes before the Supreme Court after, by my count, $26 million of support for Brad Schimmel from Elon Musk. This is preposterous. This is the only way to change this is to make it backfire in this election. And then we've got to win a trifecta in the state and pass some laws.
It really should give any right-leaning voter in Wisconsin reason to go, I don't know about that in terms of the billionaires being able to buy elections. That maybe that's not a good idea. Let's turn to another election where, again, there's a lot of money involved in this. A lot of money has come in on the side of Brittany Kinzer running for state superintendent of public instruction against the incumbent Jill Underly. Again, a nonpartisan election, but again, people in both parties have taken positions on this. So talk to us about the importance of the state superintendent race tomorrow.
Well, we have a fundamental question in the state, which is whether public taxpayer dollars should go to fund public schools or whether you should go to work, pay your taxes, to fund the public schools like the ones that you went to, and then have those dollars taken away and sent to private schools instead to I guess, turn into vouchers to support education, often for families that are already paying out of their pocket with a lot of money for private school, to give them vouchers to make it even less expensive for them. If you think that that's a good system, Brittany Kinzer's your person. She's funded by the pro-voucher movement, by people who want to replace our public school system, our public education system, with a system of vouchers to fund private schools. And I think most Wisconsinites, like myself, they support Jill Underley. They want a public school system in our state. They want a school system where every student is included and where we try to support teachers, students, the principals to give a great public education to Wisconsinites. That's the basis of our democracy in a lot of ways. And it's the reason why it's under constant attack from the far right. And this election really is a binary choice between those two visions. Brittany Kinzer, voucher schools, take public money away from public schools, and Jill Underley defending the right for a high quality public education in our state.
Now, normally this would be the part of the interview where I say, well, let's get a little bit more just in the civic engagement part of voting, because you have local offices, you have school board elections, and those don't get to be nearly as divisive. But Ben, the fact of the matter is, even now, school board elections, voters really do. It's no longer, well, which one of them is the bigger advocate for schools? There are sometimes people that run for these school board positions who are quite hostile to public education. And again, I've noticed local county Democratic parties, they do the research to find out more about, local candidates and essentially do the vetting. And so voters would do well to, really pay attention to who's on their local ballot as well.
That's absolutely right. It's worth spending a little quality time with Google to figure this out. There are these far-right groups like Moms for Liberty that go around trying to ban books and exclude certain kids and really tear down public schools writ large. And they are getting deeply involved in school board races. So that's led local Democratic parties to support pro-public school board candidates. Most of the issues that school boards face are not political unless someone comes in like a wrecking ball to politicize everything. And that's what is happening with these far-right school board takeovers. Fighting back is critical. And I'm proud that our state Democratic Party is supporting county parties, supporting local school board candidates around the state. We want to fight back, not for anyone's political agenda, but for the basic idea that we should be a state with a public education system that serves everybody. And I would hope that would be a widely shared value. I would love to get back to the days when it's just about, figuring out whether to invest more in the arts program or the science program, but that's not where we are right now. It's whether public schools should exist at all.
I've got less than 30 seconds, and I forgot to ask you about the constitutional amendment that people are going to see tomorrow.
So Republicans know that our state already requires a photo ID. They've tried to make it hard to get a photo ID. Susan Crawford sued to ensure people can get a free photo ID. Republicans have a constitutional amendment to take our photo ID law and put it in the Constitution. This is already law. We're saying vote no. Let's focus on making sure that eligible voters can vote. But the biggest thing is the Supreme Court race, Susan Crawford versus Brad Schimmel.
Ben Wikler, State Democratic Party Chair. Thank you very much. Great to talk to you.
Thanks so much, Pat.
We will wrap things up with Jane Matinaire right after this. You're Up North.